In the mid-70s, Ferrari returns to the top of the Formula One championship. Thanks to the calculating and fast Austrian driver Niki Lauda and the new concept of the 312T series racing car, one of the best Scuderia cars in the history of royal racing. Designed by Italian designer Mauro Fornieri, the car was based on a new version of the 3-liter 12-cylinder boxer engine, as well as for the first time using based on the transverse gearbox, thanks to which the model receives the T index. This arrangement made it possible to reduce the length of the car, which, in combination with efficient aerodynamics, has led to an incredible effect. It's been 11 years since Johnny Surtees' last title for Scuderia, and finally, in 1975, driving the 312T, Niki Lauda wins the title, scoring 5 victories during the season. In the same car, Lauda and Rigazzoni won the first races in 1976, and then, having received a new modification of the car with the T2 index, the Austrian would continue his confrontation with Hunt in that dramatic season. The team used this car in the course of 1977, in which, thanks to its reliability, Lauda would take the title, winning only 3 races. The next modification of the T3 under the control of Carlos Reutemann and Gilles Villeneuve looks good again in 1978, but won't be able to withstand the revolutionary Lotus car. Well, the 4th model of the T-Series allows Ferrari to win again in 1979, when Jules Scheckter became the champion and Gilles Villeneuve lost 4 points to him. But the modification of the T5 next season won't be successful. Over the years, the T-Series had brought Ferrari 4 Constructors' Championships. The Championship of '79, in which Gilles Villeneuve became the vice-champion on the presented car, certainly deserves special attention. But today we will remember the events of one of the most dramatic Formula One seasons in 1976. So, after his first championship title, Lauda felt confident in the Italian team where Rigazzoni remained his partner. Ferrari then had their own, and judging by the results of the 75th years, perhaps the best engine in the championship. And their main rivals from McLaren, like most teams in those days, used Ford Cosworth engines. 2-time champion Emerson Fittipaldi unexpectedly decided before the season to leave one of the strongest teams in the peloton and move from McLaren to his brother's team, Cooperessio car. And James Hunt took his place, leaving from the financially collapsed Hesketh team, becoming a partner of the German Joachim Mass. Judy Scheckter and Patrick Depailler continued to perform for Ken Tyrrell's team, and Mario Andretti was invited to join Ronnie Peterson in Lotus. Championship 76 consisted of 16 stages. The scoring system for the first 6 positions has been unchanged since the beginning of the 60s, but the best 7 results from the first 8 races and also 7 of the remaining ones were taken into account by the driver. And at the end of each race, only one best result of the drivers of one team went to the Constructors' Cup. The Brazilian Grand Prix after the cancellation of Argentine stage opened the 76th season. Before Hunt's debut in the McLaren team, nobody considered him capable of replacing Fittipaldi, largely due to the Englishman's controversial reputation. But James, having won pole position in the first qualification of the season, silenced the critics. On the long lap of Interlagos, Niki Lauda lost to him only 0.02 of a second. Emerson Fittipaldi in the Cooperessio car to the delight of the homestands, qualifying 5th. However, he won't be able to repeat his result in the future. After a season with the March team, Lella Lombardi, still the most successful woman in Formula One, starts the race from last position. At the start, which for the first time was given not by a flag, but by a traffic light, Lauda passes Hunt, but Rigazzoni passes both of them. Having fended off the attacks of James, Lauda bypasses his partner. After another lap, Hunt also takes second place, but the engine of his car begins to gradually fail. Losing ground, James falls behind by a whole lap and, after an engine explosion, drops out of the race. Scuderia, who was going second in shadow, slipped on Hunt's oil. With no competitors, Lauda wins the first race. Patrick Depailler at Tyrrell second, Tom Price at shadow third. Before the stage in South Africa, the Lotus team, whose drivers in Brazil managed to collide with each other, was forced to completely change the composition. Peterson was tired of constant problems with the car and moved to March, leaving Lello Lombardi without a place in Formula One. Andretti enters the stage with Pernelli. Gunnar Nilsson and Bob Evans take their places in Lotus. Hunt leads again in qualifying, only 1/10 ahead of Lauda. But starting from the muddy part of the track, James concedes several positions. However, then bypassing first his partner Mas and then Marc Brambilla, he rises to second place. Despite a slow punch, Lauda drives the race to victory. Together with him on the podium, James Hunt and Jochen Mas. At the first stage in Long Beach, Regazzoni got the pole position, and Patrick Depailler showed the second time. Both Hunt and Lauda started the race from the second row. At the start, they all kept their position. Hunt will try to overtake Depailler, but he suddenly shifting towards James, will collide with him, after which the Briton stops on the side of the road. Frustrated, Hunt left the car and went into the pits, right along the track, showing Depailler his fist and causing bewilderment among the drivers who came by. But the McLaren mechanics were surprised even more, who evacuated Hunt's car, finding that it was fully operational. Lauda, meanwhile, will easily pass Depailler to finish second, 40 seconds behind USA winner Regazzoni. Ferrari has a winning double, while Lauda has 24 points out of 27 in the individual standings. Fittipaldi finishing 6th earns 1 point for the Brazilian team Cooperacio car. In Spain, Mario Andretti returns to Lotus after leaving the Pernelli team for the championship. Before the race, new regulation will come into force, limiting the height of the air intakes. Ferrari will present a new modification of the T2 car here. At the same time, the leader of the season, Niki Lauda, will enter the stage with a small injury received outside the race. And Patrick Depailler brings to the start a novelty of his team, a 6-wheel Tyrrell. James Hunt and Niki Lauda are on the front row now. At the start, the Austrian will overtake the Englishman, but by the middle of the race, experiencing pain in the ribs, Lauda will give way to Hunt, who will eventually win the race. But after the finish, Hunt's McLaren and Jacques Laffite's Ligier will be disqualified for slightly exceeding the allowable width of the car. However, after filling an apparel within 2 months, they will be able to prove that a slight deviation is caused by the expansion of tires from heat. But until this happened, 9 points went to Lauda. At the auto of Ferrari drivers Lauda and Regazzoni were the best in qualifying. Hunt third, and Depailler at the new Tyrrell showed the 4th time. His partner Scheckter in Belgium also switched to a 6-wheel car. Hunt will pass Regazzoni at the beginning of the race, but then he will begin to experience problems with the gearbox. Desperately resisting overtaking rivals, James is still forced to retire. Lauda and Regazzoni win, and Jacques Laffite brings the young Ligier team its first podium. In the individual standings, Lauda goes further and further ahead of Regazzoni by 27 points. Hunt was only in 7th position in the championship at all. In Monaco, Niki further consolidated his success. Having won pole position, he goes ahead from the very beginning. Regazzoni, who started second, will lose to Peterson at the start. But then, they both slip on oil from another failed engine in Hunt's car. James, who started the race only 14th, was very angry at the constant technical problems with the car. In turn, the team was dissatisfied with him, because instead of preparing for the race, Hunt had fun on a sponsor's yacht. As a result, Lauda wins in Monaco. Scheckter and Depailler at their 6-wheel cars are in the top 3. The fight for the championship was already considered by many to be over. without even starting. Lauda's lead in the individual competition was impressive. In the first 6 races, he scored 51 points out of 54 possible. Second in line, Claire Rigazzoni had only 15 to his name, while Hunt was still behind at the time with 6 points. The race in Sweden will be successful for the Tyrrell team. Scheckter and Andretti started it from the first line, followed by Amon and DePaler. Lauda showed only the 5th time, and Hunt is even further. He is only 8th. Having started on the flag, the rider sometimes chose the moment of the start of the movement. But this time the judges still record a false start in Andretti's action and give him a minute of a fine. Mario tried to compensate for his punishment, but burned the engine. As a result, 2 6-wheel cars of Scheckter and DePaler bring the Tyrrell team a double. This victory will remain the only one in the entire 2-year history of their unusual chassis. Lauda will finish the race 3rd, Hunt 5th. The 8th stage in France completed the first half of the championship. Recently, McLaren has been working hard on updates for the car, and in France these changes have become noticeable. Hunt will take pole position for the first time since Spain, 28 hundredths ahead of Lauda, but Niki takes the lead in the starting straight. Already on the 8th lap, the crankshaft breaks in his engine. Hunt steps forward with Rigazzoni on his tail. But soon the second Ferrari will suffer the same fate, and Clay is out of the race. Once alone, Hunt wins in France, DePaler finishes 2nd, and John Watson becomes 3rd, and it was the first podium for him. Before the stage in the UK, the FIA commissions returned Hunt the victory at the Spanish Grand Prix, recognizing the disqualification as disproportionate to existing violation. And along with the success in France, this puts James in 2nd place in the individual standings. Lauda will lose 3 points in this regard, but still has a large and even double point margin. 2 women entered the race at Brands Hatch, Lala Lombardi and Divina Gallica, but on 2-year-old cars they failed to qualify, in which Lauda will be ahead of Hunt by only 0.06 of a second. At the start, Claire Rigazzoni takes the lead from the 4th place and attacks Lauda. 2 Ferraris collide. Clay's car is run over by Hunt. The race has been stopped, and for the restart, Hunt, Rigazzoni and Lafitte came out on spare cars. Lauda again remained in front, but by the middle of the distance will begin to experience problems with the gearbox. Afterwards, James passes Niki and wins the home race. But after the finish, Ferrari filed a protest against the use of the spare car by Hunt, as he didn't complete the first lap and didn't have right to go to the restart. But local stewards refused to disqualify Hunt. However, Ferrari insisted on their own, and the case was referred to the FIA. The result of the meeting will be known later, after the race in Italy. Meanwhile, the participants arrived in Germany at the Nürburgring. Due to the low level of safety, the drivers nicknamed the track Green Hell. On Saturday it started to rain, and the starting positions were formed based on the results of Friday's practice sessions. Niki Lauda, mindful of the danger of the track, tried to raise the issue of cancelling the race, but the advantage of just one vote decided the fate of the stage, not in his favor. Hunt and Lauda started again from the first line. On suitable path, when almost everyone started on rain tires, with the exception of Jochen Mass. And after the first lap, the participants went to the pits for slicks, whereas Mass calmly led the race. Having lost a little more time in the pit stop, Lauda immediately began to attack, and in the middle of the second lap, having driven onto the curb at the exit of the Bergberg turn, his car breaks off the track, right into the bump stop. Pulling out the gas tank, the car instantly flares up. Guy Edwards will dodge a burning Ferrari, but Langer and Earl won't be able to avoid a collision with a burning car. All of them rush to help Lauda. Arturo Merzario also stopped nearby. He, in tongues of flame, will unfasten his seat belts, after which Niki will be removed from the flaming car. Lauda was conscious, but the situation was aggravated by the fact that at the time of the accident his helmet flew off, and the Austrian received serious burns to his head and face. After sending him to the hospital, the race will be restarted, and James Hunt easily wins in it, having played 9 points in the championship at once. In addition to burns, Lauda's lungs were filled with caustic combustion products. For several days he was in serious condition, but in the end the threat to life passed. After the dire consequences of the previous round, the Ferrari team won't come to the round in Austria, trying first to get it cancelled and protesting against the latest refereeing decision in favor of Hunt. Pole position is taken by James, and at the start of the race on the wet track will give the audience the fight of several cars at once. Watson, Peterson and then Scheckter come forward in turn. Later in drier conditions, John Watson turns out to be the best, eventually scoring the first victory for himself and the Penske team. Hunt finishes the race fourth, scoring 3 points. Only one Regazzoni car is entered at the Dutch Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Lauda had already left the hospital and began to prepare for his return. Peterson and Hunt go into battle from the first line, and Regazzoni only from the third row. Almost the entire race will be in beautiful battle between Peterson, Hunt and Watson, but only James will reach the finish line. Regazzoni is second, and Andretti is third. In Lauda's absence, Hunt's lead in the individual standings is reduced to just 2 points. 2 weeks later, still not fully recovered from severe burns, Niki Lauda in bandage enters the Italian Grand Prix. His return was unexpected even for his own team, which had already found a replacement for him in the person of Carlos Reutemann, and the Italians put 3 cars on the stage at once. At the same time, Lauda becomes a fifth in qualifying with the best of the Scuderia drivers, and Jacques Laffite wins his first pole here. The McLaren team drivers and Penske were stripped of their Saturday results for using illegal fuel, and Hunt started the race from the very tail. At the start, Lauda rolls back to the middle of the peloton, but will bounce back in the race, while Hunt flies off the track at the time of the struggle with Tom Price. Peterson, Regazzoni and Laffite arrive on the podium after finishing in 3 seconds, but the hero of the race is Niki Lauda, who finished in 4th place. Before the Canadian stage, it became known about the decision of the FIA Court of Appeal, which excluded the result of James Hunt from the protocols of the 9th stage of the British Grand Prix. Hunt is stripped of 9 points for the win, and new Brands Hatch winner Niki Lauda is awarded an additional 3 points. After that, his lead in the championship at once grew from 5 to 17 points, but already in qualifying, Hunt wins with a big advantage over the rest, while Lauda wins only 6. At the start, James will miss Peterson, but after further attacks he will be able to lead the race and bring it to victory. Peterson gradually ascends, and Patrick Depailler finished the race second, soaked through with gasoline due to a fuel leak and lost consciousness immediately after the finish. Niki Lauda experienced problems with control, will reach only 8th place and won't score points. With 2 rounds left in the season, the 2 contenders are now separated by 8 points. Given Hunt's form and Lauda's condition, their chances of winning the championship are regarded equally. Really pissed off at the disqualification in the UK, Hunt ends the season doing his best at Watkins Glen in the USA. James again takes pole position while Lauda starts from 5th place. At the beginning of the race, Jody Scheckter takes the lead, after which Hunt fights with him right up to the finish line. On lap 14, after hitting a metal rail, Jackie X almost finds himself in a fire trap, but quickly jumps out of the remains of the car with broken ankle. Having exchanged position with Scheckter several times, Hunt wins the race, while Lauda rises to 3rd place in the fight, beating Jochen Mass' second McLaren by 1/10 of a second at finish line. Now, before the final stage in Japan, Lauda and Hunt share only 3 points. The fate of the championship title was to be decided by the last race at the Fuji track. Qualification was held in dry conditions. The best time was shown by Mario Andretti, who was 3 hundredths ahead of Hunt. Lauda finished third, 2/10 behind the American, but on the day of the race itself, a heavy downpour fell over the track, and at first the question arose of cancelling or postponing it. But in the end it was decided to start. At the start, Hunt managed to lead the race and get better visibility in the front of him, with everyone else covered in spray. Lauda, whose vision after the accident was already poor, began to lose ground, and after the second lap, Niki decided to end the race altogether. Having driven to the pits, he will try to explain to the engineers who came to the rescue that life is more precious than the championship title, and he will get out of the car. Perkins, Pace and Fittipaldi will do the same. After the retirement of Lauda, Hunt now only had to finish in the top 3 to become the champion. At the same time, despite the problems of the others, he continued to lead the race. But gradually the rain subsided, and many drivers began to experience problems with the rain tires, including Hunt, who missed Depailler first and then Andretti. Murray will overtake Patrick with 10 laps to go and lead the race. At McLaren, meanwhile, observing that almost everyone in the dry section of the track had tires worn out badly, they put up a sign for James asking him to cool the tires and a question mark indicating the possibility of a pit stop at any time. Meanwhile, Depailler will go to the pits due to a delaminated rear wheel, releasing Hunt into second place. James continued to stay on the track, but with 5 laps to go, James' left front tire gave out and he drove into the pits, where the mechanics had to work hard to leave his car. After 27 seconds in the pits, Hunt returns to the track in 5th place. Fresh tires allow him to attack and he quickly catches up and passes first Regazzoni, then Alan Jones, and eventually returns to the 3rd position. Hunt is almost catching up with Patrick Depailler, but 3rd place is enough for him to become champion. Together with Andretti, they cross the finish line, but only in a circle behind the American, who managed to keep his tires until the end of the distance. After the finish, Hunt was annoyed with the team that they didn't give him a clear order to pit earlier. He sincerely believed that he had missed the opportunity to become a champion. But the joyful mechanics explained to him that he finished 3rd and won the title. Hunt clarified this several times, and only then realized that he had won the championship. At the end of the season, James Hunt was only 1 point ahead of Niki Lauda, but no one could call the Austrian a loser then. They were followed by the Tyrrell drivers led by Jody Scheckter, and the Constructors' Championship went to Ferrari team and their 312 T-Series chassis. The confrontation between Hunt and Lauda in 1976 will remain in the memory of the fans for a long time to come. And almost 4 decades later it will form the basis of Ron Howard's film Race, which very vividly reflects the events of perhaps the most incredible, scandalous and dramatic season in the history of Formula 1.